Hey, does anybody else remember that American-based K-pop talent agency that was supposed to be coming to New York called Hits and Y back in 2011? No? Just me? Yeah, that's usually how it goes.
What we gonna do right here is go back. Way back.
Over the last 10 years, K-pop has become rooted in the Western musical landscape. One could make a very strong argument that this is due in large part to the intense fan base that K-pop idols have amassed amongst youth culture. Western K-pop idols that grew up during the Hallyu wave, as I did, will remember the unanimous joy at watching our favorite idols gain any sort of recognition in the Western market. Now pause. Let's discuss exactly what the Hallyu wave was and the role that it played in something like a fake K-pop music company coming into existence in America and being taken so seriously by so many people in the first place. The term Hallyu is a Chinese phrase which literally translates to Korean wave. The term was used to define the booming popularity of Korean pop culture in other parts of Asia, and this began in the late 90s and early 2000s when Korean entertainment began spilling over into other countries such as Japan, China, Singapore, Taiwan, and Vietnam, to name a few. Thanks to the internet, Westerners were also able to gain access to Asian entertainment and exposure to Asian pop culture, and a second Hallyu wave, or Hallyu 2.0, would sweep through America and the Western world by the mid-2000s. MySpace, YouTube, and online forums and chat rooms made it possible for early US fans of K-pop to spread the word and keep up with the news of their favorite Korean celebrities. This was also intentional on the part of Korean industry leaders who were making an actual conscious effort to break into the American market. Thanks to strategic marketing, some of Korea's top music labels were able to push their artists into the American media. For example, the Wonder Girls would be interviewed by popular American television host Wendy Williams in 2009, where they also performed live. They would perform on the hit dance competition show So You Think You Can Dance, and afterwards would star in their own Nickelodeon TV movie in 2012. Other popular Korean acts would follow, such as Korean heartthrob B-Rain making his U.S. movie debut in 2009's Ninja Assassin, top-selling girl group Girls' Generation, who made an appearance on The David Letterman Show in 2012, and 21, who would have a iconic team-up with Microsoft when the company used their song I Am the Best to take not-so-subtle shots at Apple. It was a moment. And of course, you can't talk about Korea's American takeover without mentioning rapper Psy's Oppa Gangnam Style. That was inescapable in 2012. All of this set the stage to solidify Korean pop music as a force to be reckoned with in one of the largest music industries in the world, and it helped to mobilize Korea's efforts to become a soft power with their robust entertainment industry. It was also extremely exciting for Western Korean pop culture fans because wins like these were rare and extremely monumental. But still, these brief brushes with our favorite idols were crumbs compared to the hypervisibility that Korean fans got in their country and the accessibility that they had to their favorite celebrities. So for Western audiences, the lives of K-pop idols seemed like fairy tales that only solidified themselves in our world once every blue moon. Magical, but always slightly out of reach. What Western fans did know was that unlike the US method of being in the right place at the right time or knowing someone in the industry already, K-pop idols actually had to earn their way into the limelight. In order to produce the shiny icons we see on TV today, many Korean music agencies would actually hold auditions or even scout potential trainees right off the street. US fans were able to watch their favorite idols' humble beginnings via their old audition tapes and practice videos on YouTube. This helped to establish a personal investment into their favorite celebrities. Watching your favorite performer transform from an unpolished trainee into a sleek megastar was not only satisfying, but inspirational and aspirational. From an outsider's perspective, this seemed like a dream come true, a fair chance to actually earn a shot at fame. If only there were opportunities like that in America, right? Well, in 2011, US K-pop fans would finally get their wish when a woman by the name of Lois Chun would establish the first US-based K-pop talent agency. Hallyu Training Services, or Hits and Y, was advertised as a performing arts school for young creatives hoping for a career in the music industry, particularly the Korean music industry. I remember the buzz making its way into one of the Facebook groups I was a part of in winter of 2011. One of the members excitedly announced that there would be a K-pop summer camp holding auditions throughout the spring to accept scholarship students for the summer. A look on the sleek website excitedly boasted a curriculum full of dance classes, vocal training, modeling and posing courses, and much more. The camp was based in Manhattan, New York, at a rented studio and would take place over the entirety of the summer of 2012. I've already mentioned the voracious nature of young K-pop fans, so the mere mention of a US-based K-pop training company was enough to make the Hits and Why news spread like wildfire online. You couldn't go to any Asian pop culture chat room, forum, Tumblr blog, etc. without seeing K-pop or K-pop adjacent fans chattering excitedly about the summer camp. And it wasn't as if the only thing Hits and Why had going for it was lip service either. The website was sleek and professionally put together, with a Q&A section and profiles on the various teachers and staff that listed their credentials. There was also working contact information where parents were able to get in touch with Lois and her team to voice their questions and concerns about the program. On top of all of this, it seemed as if Lois and her associates actually did have some sort of legitimate connections to the K-pop industry, as during one of their many live auditions, popular K-pop group Trax performed and offered words of encouragement to the trainee hopefuls. In the background, the Hits and Why logo is clearly visible. Chun did seem to be on top of her game. She came off as professional and trustworthy and well-connected. It's not really clear to me how she and her team were able to nail down a major K-pop act to back up Hits and Why. I don't know if they paid them using that tuition money they scammed out of everybody, or if they genuinely had some connections in the music industry. But it definitely worked to drum up excitement and legitimize Hits and Why. It also got the auditions as well as the tuition fees pouring in. Those wanting to audition that couldn't make it to the in-person tryouts in New York were encouraged to apply online. So, between winter of 2011 and spring of 2012, hopeful teens uploaded their audition videos. Your girl included. Please don't go looking for that. It has long since been deleted. It was embarrassing, and I like to try to put it as far behind me as possible. We all auditioned in the hopes of making the cut. The audition process was quick and easy enough. You just had to introduce yourself in Korean and English, do a 30 to 45 second dance sequence that could either be improvised or taken from a pre-existing dance number, sing one hook and one chorus of a song in either Japanese, English, or Korean with an optional rap verse, and finally reenact a brief monologue. This could be from a movie, K-drama, TV show, whatever the auditioner chose. The overall process only took about 3 to 5 minutes to complete. Once you were done, you'd either attach your audition to the email or you would tag Hits and Why in your YouTube video. You needed to include a headshot and full body picture. They didn't have to be professionally shot. You also had to include basic information like your height, weight, nationality, age, languages spoken, strengths and weaknesses, and so on and so forth. Surprisingly enough, there were no fees to audition online. I know, shocking, right? By the time the preliminary auditions wrapped up, Hits and Why had actually managed to drum up enough excitement to make the local news. They leaned into this publicity heavily, using it to their advantage. Email blasts were sent out that potential trainees might be featured on TV, or at the very least on the Hits and Why YouTube blog. So the next round of in-person auditions were supposed to be the determining factor on who would make the final cut. I do remember receiving an email stating that Hits and Why wanted me to try for their second round of auditions, and that if I gave them my name and age, I'd be asked to share my story in an interview during. Although at the time I was, really upset about not being able to go to the live auditions, I'm super happy now that my family did not have the disposable income to waste on sending me to Manhattan for the in-person tryouts. And I'm definitely glad I didn't go there just to be scammed out of thousands of dollars. I did, however, watch the videos and news coverage on the in-person auditions and waited with the rest of the Western K-pop community as the finalists were announced for the first semester of the training program. I shared in everyone's excitement and envy at the finalists chosen, vowing to audition again next semester. In the meantime, the official Hits and Why YouTube, blogs, and website provided no shortage of content to consume. There were day-in-the-life blogs, shot by the students, dorm tours, school tours, and videos of trainees relaxing and goofing off in between practices. Often the school would put on showcases and live performances to show the progress of their students, and it was cool to see what the trainees had been working up to behind the scenes. Everything seemed to be going well, until it wasn't. Slowly, the buzz and activity around Hits and Y began to slow down, and what little buzz there wasn't positive. Parents began to comment in to rip off reports saying that Lois Chun was either rescheduling or canceling the remainder of the summer program and fall semesters that they had paid for without reimbursing their tuition. Multiple reports began streaming in that parents were paying upwards of $7,000 only to be told that the program was going to be canceled and that they would be issued a full refund. But when they called in to check the status of the refund, they were given the runaround. One concerned mother named Bonnie Blake went as far as to call the bank that Chun used, Chase Bank, to ask about the payments. According to Chase, Chun's team had deposited 2 fraudulent checks and had their accounts frozen because of it. Chun herself began to disassociate herself from Hits and Y and everything related to it. According to Steve Roth, owner of Pro Studios, where she was renting the space for the camp, Chun skipped out on paying the rest of her fees. The final check Chun did write to them bounced, and apparently so did she. At first, Chun did seem to be trying to save face by making a statement to WABC 7 News, who ran the story locally. She claimed that she'd begun negotiating a repayment plan and would reimburse 100% of the tuition and outstanding debts to the students' parents and the studio. She also claimed that she regretted disappointing the students and their families. In reality, Blake, the woman who brought the story to WABC 7 News, and her daughter Kelly were only reimbursed $300. I don't know if they ever received a full refund. There were also first-hand accounts from the students who'd been in attendance at the camp. I remember allegations coming out that students were being allowed to not only break curfew, but that Chun would allegedly accompany them during these outings, not as a chaperone, but almost like a big sister figure, partaking in just as much immature behavior as the students themselves. Allegedly, alcohol was frequently allowed in the dorms, despite the fact that students were minors, and Chun herself was alleged to be behaving inappropriately with the trainees, even drinking or smoking with them. Some of these negative experiences caused the trainees to drop out of the program prematurely, and trainee hopefuls waiting for the fall semester had completely lost out on their money without any hope of getting a reply from Chun, let alone a refund. According to former staff member Mia Lerda, Hits and Y staff went unpaid or underpaid at best. Lerda claimed that Lois purposely targeted students and teens by preying on their aspirations and naivete. She encouraged the students to lie and steal concert tickets or bribe them with tickets to concerts that she either couldn't provide or were fraudulent. She also used the students to recruit more victims for the scam by making false promises of being able to meet Korean idols or go to Korea. Lois's underhanded behavior from the Hits and Y scheme gained so much traction that between 2013 and 2014, a blog called Send Lois Chun to Jail sprang up documenting Chun's entire fraudulent past. Here, people listed Chun's many aliases, including Claire Lee, which seems to be her legitimate American name, Sung A Chun, which seems to be her legitimate Korean name, and Hodu Jan, to name a few. Victims chased Chun's roots back to Houston, Texas, which seems to be where she might be from, as these seem to be the deepest roots I could find on her while doing my research. It seems that back in Texas, Chun ran a catering company scam under a different name that also stole money from individuals in exchange for services that were never delivered. It also seems that Chun went as far as to borrow money from her own family members in order to fund her schemes. Victims listed other accomplices in her scams, including brothers Derek and Jonathan Lee and a man by the name of Uncle Robin Kim, who were in on the Hits and Y scam. The many fraudulent companies Chun had left in her wake were documented along with angry reports of victims who had lost tens of thousands of dollars. According to the site owner who'd been documenting the stories and allegations emailed to him, the amount of money that Chun managed to scam out of people was between $150,000 to $200,000. As recently as May 21st, 2021, anonymous tips were being sent into the blog locating Chun's whereabouts, placing her as an employee at Lulu's Buffet in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Like I said, the K-pop industry is pretty recognizable in the U.S. market now, but that wasn't the case 10 years ago. The fandom was not as widely acknowledged outside of their own circles offline, and because of this, the fraudulent K-pop talent agency didn't gain much traction outside of the local news coverage and online forums where it was being discussed. So, thanks to the niche nature of the scam, Lois was able to get away with ironically her biggest and most publicized scheme to date. 10 years ago, things like concert tickets, CDs, and even decent merch were hard to come by for young K-pop and J-pop fans. So when an opportunity like the one Chun was presenting arose, the fandom jumped at it. The fake K-pop talent agency was a perfect scheme to prey upon the hopes of young kids who were starved for more exposure to Asian pop culture content, or who wanted to have their talents recognized in an industry they'd come to love, but seemed completely out of their reach. Many of the teenagers who were around during the Hits and Y scam are well into adulthood now, but I'm sure that rang some bells for some of you. Thankfully, more information about the predatory nature of most music industries, especially the Korean pop industry, have come out and have since disillusioned K-pop fans of all ages from the shiny lives of idols. With us being on our third Hallyu wave, hopefully millennials and Gen Z, who are much more adept at realizing when they're being sold bogus opportunities and bullshit, won't fall for anything like Hits and Y, and hopefully nothing like Hits and Y will ever happen again. If you manage to spot Lois Chun in public, or if you run across her and you are a victim of her in any scheme that she's come across, I encourage you to get in touch with local authorities or even the blog that I named in this video. I'll link it down below. This woman is an actual menace to society, and she can't be allowed to keep running around and possibly hurting people and their families. Alright, so that was really a lot of fun for me to go back down. I mean, it's not fun to read about people who are, just good, hardworking people who were just young kids that wanted an opportunity to learn and were actually legitimately talented. If you go and look at some of those audition tapes, you can see how talented some of the kids were who auditioned. It's not fun to hear about them losing thousands of dollars that they'll never get back. But it was really interesting for me to go back down that rabbit hole and sort of revisit that part of my past. I like to talk about really obscure things, particularly from my childhood and youth, like growing up as a millennial on the internet back in the day. And I hope that that was interesting for some of you. Let me know if you guys remember the Hits and Y scam, if you guys auditioned. Oh, and especially if you were an actual trainee at the Hits and Y program, please give me some insight into what actually went down while you were there, because I would love to know more. If you were a victim of any of Lois Chun's other scams or schemes, also let me know down below, and hopefully this woman can get brought to justice somehow. I mean, that's the least that can happen for the people that she's hurt. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this little trip down memory lane with me. And until next time, you guys, deuces, silly gooses.